So, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Rui Ferreira. I'm a researcher and developer at the Instituto de Comunicações in Portugal. And my role in PROSE is to deal with development and day-to-day operations for the PROSE platform for project hosting. So, just to throw out a quick introduction, PROSE has this, let's say, wide goal of promoting collaboration for research and development projects in Europe, help projects promote their outcomes or find potential partners, specifically within the scope of software development, and of course specifically within the scope of open source software development, of course. Also, it's a way for the European Commission to gather feedback in terms of what are the projects doing in terms of open source, and if it's a good thing, a bad thing, does it help or doesn't it help in allowing projects to collaborate. Towards this end, PROSE created let's say, a software hosting platform called opensourceprojects.eu. That's what I'm talking about here today. And the main goal of the platform is to support the various European ICT projects in hosting their software as open source, because that's also one of the goals from the Commission. So for this webinar, very briefly, I'll start with some slides, but then I'll quickly switch to the platform itself. I find that it's much more interesting to actually show you things than to just talk with some slides about the tools. I'll just quickly cover the features of the platform, talk a little bit about what's new in the platform since since the last webinar and since the platform deployment. I'll introduce some of the features that are also coming up on metrics, and then I'll just show it by sharing my screen in the platform, and that way you'll have some more accurate impressions. So, as I said, the platform is basically a project hosting website, similar to other platforms like SourceForge, GitHub, let's say Bitbucket, and others. This one in particular, it's built around an open source project called Allura. Allura is sort of a project that originated from the SourceForge hosting platform. So it has all of the usual tools, an issue tracker, wikis, discussion forums, of course version control tools like Git and SVN. And also, since we gathered some requirements concerning ICT projects, we realized that some not so common features that would be useful would be the ability to host private projects and the ability to create sub-projects, mostly because ICT projects tend to separate their work in terms of work packages or tasks 1.1 or 2.1 and so on. And so, in a nutshell, this is an overview of the features of the platform. Some new things we have been working on since the beginning are an API to access the platform. The platform already had an API, but we received a lot of feedback from users and questions after the last webinar concerning how to use this. And so we tried to document this. We added an introduction article about how to use the API. We also published some code examples on how to use the API to communicate with the platform. And also some of the partners also contributed with bug fixes to this end, right? More recently, we were working on the new search features for the platform. because at some point when you have lots of content in, it gets a little bit complicated to navigate inside the larger projects in the platform. We are also working on gathering metrics from projects, specifically software metrics. And finally, we did some work concerning documentation and a tool I'll talk in a bit, which is the license chooser. So the API basically allows you to integrate with the platform. You get to request information about, let's say, the issues on your project. So it's a fairly common feature for integrated with external tools. You can check the PROSE website or the documentation website on the platform for some introduction articles and examples. And also you can follow some of the issues in the issue tracker for the platform concerning some specific issues like authenticated tokens for using the API and so on and so forth. More recently, what we realized was that some of the larger projects in the platform were creating a lot of content and sub-projects. And so, to make this a little bit easier, we are adding, let's say, project search feature, which we are still testing, but it seems to be working well so far. But if you're interested and can offer us any kind of feedback on this, we would appreciate it. This should be rolling out fully, let's say, in the next couple of weeks. We also enable the search feature in specific for the issue tracker, where it allows you to do things like search for keywords, reporters, or assignments, or milestones and dates. Because this seemed to be one case where this made particular sense. Then we are also working on introducing into the platform these metrics dashboards for two purposes. One is to keep metrics for each project, so that each project can have feedback on how your project is evolving in terms of, let's say, number of commits or number of people that are committing, how much code they are committing. And we are also working on something a little bit different, which is we added this, let's call it global dashboard for European metrics, where we gather data for as many European projects as we can. And even projects that are not hosted inside our platform. Right now we gather data for roughly 30 projects, I think, from various sources, GitHub, for example, or SourceForge, and we try to generate global reports about this information. Of course, this is limited to our, let's say, availability of resources. But if you know of a European project that does open source code and has this source code online that we can gather information about it, if you can let us know, we would appreciate it, because we can include it in these reports, and it will probably increase the visibility for them anyway. Even if we don't gather metrics for your project, or don't do it exactly as you would like them to be, we can definitely help you with the tools to do it. We use a set of tools for gathering metrics from Bitergi. Bitergi is also a partner in PROSE. And you can also check one of our wikis for some pointers on how to start doing this. I find this specifically very useful when drafting, let's say, reports for the end of a project in terms of dissemination of open source code, to see not only how much code or how many people are working in the project, but what's the interaction between the project and the community itself. Finally, before I go into something more specific, we also host documentation for the platform in docs.opensourceproject.eu. And we host there something called the license chooser, which is an application to help projects select their open source license. This is a topic that was already covered in one of the other webinars, so I won't go into it. But this is where you can find it if you ever need it. Okay? So just give me a quick 30 seconds to share my screen, and then I can actually show you the platform.
I just wanted to ask you some questions regarding the features of the Forge that you were commenting on.
Of course.
For example, the search functionalities and things like that. Are you taking into account already provided results by other ICT projects?
Well, we try to talk, and we do have collaborations with projects like Marcos or Floss Metrics. So there are things that the other projects are doing and have been doing for a while now, and we are not trying to, let's say, replace them. Even because we are a coordination action, so we don't have the manpower and the funds to take all of the work, of course. We need to be pragmatic and focused about it. So whenever we get the chance to collaborate with other projects on these things, yes, of course, absolutely. I know that some of the other projects that are dealing with metrics and open source in the Commission have already started using our API for gathering data, for example. But I haven't checked in with them recently, so I cannot give you a full update about it. So, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I have no feedback on this side. So, if something stops working, please let me know. So basically, I'll just go over some of the things I've talked before, but in the actual website. Let's see, like I said, here's the registration form and everything that you need to get started. I can very quickly show you some of the projects that are already here. Of course, this is the list of public projects. There are also several private projects that are not visible right now. In general, we don't, of course, we prefer projects that are doing open source, and after the end of a project, our goal is to host their open source results. But we did some very extensive requirements gathering at the beginning of the project, and for many European projects it's very hard to immediately start a project with everything open, because for example, the projects are still deciding on the agreement in terms of licensing, and so they cannot immediately move into an open source model. Also because some of the contents of the project themselves are private or under a specific license for one of the partners. So some projects in the platform start as private projects, and then they progressively move into public projects. So here's a list of some of the projects. Of course, we are also on this list. We host our own source code here, which makes perfect sense. We have to eat our own, let's say, dog food. Just to show you some of the features I was talking about earlier, we recently added global search, and this is different because it actually searches. Some of the projects here host 5, 6, sometimes more sub-projects, and this allows me to search globally inside all of the sub-projects, which make things a lot easier. So, for example, if I search for my username, I get a lot of tickets from the issue tracker, a lot. These in particular are for the open source projects, or if I search for something else, I get wiki pages as well. or documentation here, for example. For the issue tracker, which is a tool that seems to get a lot of users in here, the search also works, but it's a little bit more refined. It's right here on the top right corner. You just press this magnifying glass, and I say it's a little bit more refined because you can search, for example, for keywords. If I want to find all of the issues that I reported, I can do something like this, and it will just show the issues I reported. Or all of the issues that are assigned to me, or the status of the issues. So if I want to search for all of the closed issues, I will do something like this. There's a help button here on the right with a list of all of the keywords that you can use, and some additional documentation, so milestones here, body text or the number, or like I said, report as well, and other options. There's also a documentation page on docs.opensourceproject.eu. This particular page has this quick start guide with some questions, some specific topics that people usually find more or less straightforward, like creating subprojects or dealing with permissions and access control. One other thing you can also find on this documentation page is the Compass application. And the Compass is not something I'll cover here because it will take me some time, and it was already covered in the previous webinar. Compass is basically a license chooser app. It helps you pick up your license. So it takes you through a series of questions, and at the end it will suggest you licenses, open source licenses that you can use for your source code. Another thing I was talking about earlier was metrics. I can show you this. This is our dashboard for I believe it's 23 or 27. I can't be sure yet. Let me check. European projects out there, and it basically generates aggregated data about all of those projects. So let's say if I want to see the list of projects. So for example, right now it's showing me which projects generate more source codes, and if you look at the left, you'll see some familiar maybe FP7 or EU projects. You can also ask for other types of information. You can search by, let's say, contributors, for example, and it will list you the top contributors in this entire set of projects. Or if you want to go by repositories, some projects have multiple repositories, and so it can plot you the data per repository over time. So let's say, for example, here it started early, but for a long time it didn't have data there. And so it's a significant amount of data, and we feel that it offers this, let's say, bird's eye view of what's happening in terms of several of these projects, which I find very, very useful. If you happen to know other projects that you would like to see here, please let us know. We are always looking for more data to have here. Of course, there are other projects that are also interested in this data, and all of the tools that you need to generate these reports and all of the information that we use to generate these reports is available at the platform in our wiki. So if you want to generate these yourself, or if you want to reuse these same tools to generate reports for your project, that's a good place to start. So this mostly covers what I wanted to show in terms of demonstration, but I'm open to requests, so if there's any specific feature that you would like to see or discuss, I'm happy to show it working on the platform. Or if you have any other questions that you would like to ask. Sure. So, well, from each individual project perspective, the main goal would be to reduce the effort they have to spend in maintaining these kinds of tools. We know that a lot of projects end up self-hosting these tools, and that can be well, that can take some time and some effort out of the project. More importantly than that, from the perspective of the Commission, is that even for projects that end up developing open source code, if the code doesn't get out there into some place where it gains visibility, then there's an opportunity that it's lost. And also, if the project only makes the source code available as open source after the end of the project, then there's an opportunity that it's lost in terms of inter-project collaboration towards the same goals. So, for example, if another project is also working on, in your case, cloud stack development in the ICT project, then it would be, it would be beneficial if both projects could collaborate towards the same goal. Sorry. Was that, did that cover the scope of your question? Yes. A matter of visibility, from the moment that the Commission started targeting open source as a goal, and where projects have started saying, yes, we want to develop as open source, it's always a matter of visibility, because it's a way for projects to put their results out there for other projects, for the community as a whole. So it's always a matter of visibility then. And sustainability for the project and for the Commission in terms of effort. Yes, that's right. So if there are no other questions, just a quick note that we are going to post this on YouTube shortly. We're always available to answer questions about the platform either on YouTube or through our Twitter account. So just post a question or at the platform on our issue tracker. So just if you need something, just post the questions in one of these places and we'll try to answer briefly. Other than that, thank you for joining us today. Obviously, I hope you come to use our platform and enjoy the benefits of using it. And thank you for joining us today. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for being such an interactive participant. It was really nice with you. Thanks.